this week, and Jeff, I imagine you went to the shop already and picked up your actual book. Uh, but we're gonna talk about yeah. Oh,
Like
interesting. So you picked
I picked up. There's this one.
I so funny. That's funny. This is really telling of us because I also picked up. First of all, Titan Comics had this. Is yours the little like foil matte
No,
variant?
this
Or
is just the
just a regular?
regular A
So
cover.
I don't know if you can see. This is like some kind of metallic sheen to it,
Oh yeah, that's cool.
which Titan had. It's really cool because it's unlike the normal foil. It's not blinding, but it still looks cool. But
It's like a semi
interestingly enough,
gloss.
I also picked up one of the very. I mean, I'm a teenage boy at heart, so I also picked up one of these variants. But I picked up the bad guys variant. This is what's her name? Chameleon, I think she's I don't know if she's the
Yeah,
character, but I just met her in Destro. But you picked up the Baroness variant,
I picked up the bear in this
uh,
variant.
who in this issue, and spoilers, we're going to spoilers for issue one. And if you haven't been reading, she's one of the Joes
Yeah,
where I don't. She's usually a bad guy, if I'm not mistaken. Um,
she is usually a bad guy. She is her. She's still the same character. She's still Baroness Contessa, whatever. Blah 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 blah. So the same character, still the same. She's like a. She's basically uh, a for hire assassin sort of person,
okay,
sort of
okay.
operative.
She's
So
kind
the
of
United
like
States.
what the Black Widows would be
Yeah,
if they
sort of.
never if she never became like an Avenger, like if she
Right,
just
right, right.
doing Black Widow stuff, right?
Yeah, yeah. She's sort
Uh,
of like Black Widow, but without the organization of the Black Widows where they come
right,
from. She's just kind of a solo operative.
right. So we're gonna talk about, like I said, full spoilers for GI Joe #1. This is a new book. We were gonna talk about it last weekend, but we ran out of time. Because we really did a lot. Like that 1990s movie thing really took us for a while. So, but yeah, let me pull up the creative team before we get into all this. This is written by Joshua Williamson, who had been doing the Duke series and the Cobra Commander series, if I'm not mistaken. With art by Tom Reilly, who was also doing the Duke series. Jordie Bellaire on colors, letters by Rose Wooton, and then if you see here this cover support, these are all the artists and the art teams that did variant covers for this. So you could
So many covers.
so many
And in
variant
fact,
covers.
I have no idea who this cover artist is. I was just like, oh, I like this cover, and I was
Uh
trying to. I was like, this kind of looks like, and I'm not as good at knowing artists from their artwork as I used to be. They all kind of like there's too many of them now, and I was like, is
yeah.
this Tula Lote? I can't remember who what her artwork looks like, and so I was like trying to
No.
match up the names because I'm like I've seen this artist before, but I have no idea who it is.
So I picked up the Jenny Frison cover. I knew I I also looked well, I picked up a bunch of covers. We'll see them when we talk about comics. But that was really funny because when you pulled yours, I was like, oh, that's funny that we both got the main cover and then one of the
Yeah,
covers with the hot girls, right?
with the hot
Because that's how
girls, you
you
got to
sell
go hot
comics.
girl. Yeah,
That's how you sell
you know.
comics. You sell them with a side of cheesecake. Um,
I
so
mean,
in this
she's taking off
issue,
her glasses. Like, what more do
I
you want
mean,
out of the Baroness?
I mean,
What more
come
do you
on.
want?
Or she's putting them back on.
Or she's putting them back on.
That's right. Either way,
Safety first.
that's right. Either way. So in this issue, we meet the Joes. We meet most of them. There's one that is in the cover who seems to be a little bit separate from the group as of now. And then, like I mentioned, we're gonna go full spoilers. Tragedy does strike the team towards the end of the issue, so we'll talk about that in a second. But what did you think of the book overall? Just first thoughts.
I thought it was great. So there have been 4 series that have led up to this.
Yeah,
Duke, Cobra Commander, Destro, and Scarlet. Scarlet is not
yeah.
even in this issue at
She's
all.
not
Sure.
yet.
In fact, nothing in this in her little book has anything to do with this really.
Yeah,
Um, it's but this book, but even though there's those 4 previous series, this book you can read blind, like you can read go in with having not read any of that other stuff. This
yeah,
covers kind of everything that happens up until this point, and as far as the GI Joes are concerned, for the entire Energon universe, because this also incorporates some Transformers stuff as
Oh
well.
yeah.
I think they do a great job of breaking down. It's a for those that are older Joes fans, you know the Joes are there's like 180 people on the GI Joe squad. This one
Yep.
is a much smaller squad. There's only like 5 of them so far. You know, they're still kind of building, and they've got a lot of these characters that you know. They're just kind of spread out throughout the globe right now. So this is definitely kind of an origin to the GI Joe where they're pulling these members together, and you're kind of seeing the first iteration of this GI Joe team.
Yes.
I like that they're not the GI Joe that we know. They're like American, like they're behind everybody else as far as technology goes. As far as because their main adversary again is Cobra. Cobra has all these high tech weapons, and the Joes are just using old school stuff, and they're just like they have no budget. It's kind of a ragtag group of these soldiers on this secret mission kind of thing,
Yeah.
and they're like woefully out budgeted and out armored and out all kinds of stuff. It's a fun comic. It's definitely a fun comic.
For
And
sure.
Tom Riley's artwork is great. It's very reminiscent of oh gosh, I can't think of his name. It's very clean, very cartoony, but very clean, but not super cartoony. If that makes sense.
Yeah. No, you can see here a little bit of that. I got a few pages that we can show. I love this. Like I could hear the Joe music playing during this introduction montage of like we got rock and roll. He's Craig S. McConnell, specializes in heavy artillery. Like like I could hear
Yeah,
that as I was going through the whole thing, and then it's really funny. And then we have the Baroness, right? So it's
yeah, and
rock
she's
and
funny.
roll, Stalker, Cover Girl, Clutch, Baroness, and of course Duke. Um, which is like just a really fun team. Like everybody has their own little specialty. I is Covergirl a new character for this as well?
No, she's been around for a bit. She was kind of a
Okay,
second or third generation from that first grouping of
gotcha.
toys.
So I think because they mentioned in the synopsis that there is a new character, and I think it's this guy. I forget his name, but oh here, what am I doing? Why can't I could just
The guy in the
zoom back.
suit.
Yeah, the guy in the suit. I think we do get to see his origin, but he's not with the Joes just quite yet. Um,
Yeah, I thought that
but
that was going to be Falcon,
okay,
who is Duke's cousin of some sort, or second or nephew, or I forget what they are. They're like half brothers. That's what they are.
yeah. I love too the I think Jordie Bellaire does such a good job with the colors. Like this is one of the
Oh
fight
yeah,
scenes I was talking about, and it's like it's just these little washes of. First of all, the choice of purple and yellow, it's great because those are usually colors reserved for the villains, right? The
hmm
primary colors are usually reserved for heroes. So it tells you immediately, like, yeah, this guy's probably going to be a Joe, but he's also in a more nebulous area. He's not a true hero, if you
he
will.
plays by his own rules.
That's right. Um, so that was really cool. And then, yeah, as the Joes get into the first mission, I love how far ahead of everything Cobra Commander is. Like, he's just on top of it.
Yeah,
Uh, so, man, they make it really hard not to root for the bad guys because they're so cool.
and it's
Probably,
also fun that if you have been again, if, you don't need to have been reading along this whole
yeah,
time, but if you haven't, obviously it definitely enriches the whole thing. The thing that's
yeah,
fun about this Cobra grouping, which I don't think I'd necessarily caught when I was watching the cartoons or any of the other things, is that it's really just a loose conglomeration of a bunch of bad guys. It's not an
yeah.
organized organization at all. It's just these individuals that have all these specific interests that are currently aligning, but it does lead to a lot of fun tension between the
Hmm.
bad guys and the bad guys group, which is kind of something similar that they're starting over in the Transformers side of things too. Because when we get to our weekly pickups, one of
Yeah.
the books from this week was Transformers, and you're just seeing these pockets of Decepticon groups kind of popping up
Mhm.
along. So it's a well crafted universe that they're creating over
Mhm.
there at Skybound.
Yep, I agree. I really love that idea of we have a common goal, but we're the bad guys. We don't have friends. These are not our friends. These are, and even with the Joes, like, I mean, I think a lot of them do serve a purpose, and they kind of came together under Duke, but obviously they don't. Not on if
Yeah,
everybody wants to be there,
these
or
guys are
at least,
definitely not country first. They're kind of like we're just
yeah,
yeah
and for a big reason, because if you read the Duke series, like it feels like their country's kind of thrown them aside
yeah
for a lot of them, right? So I like that idea of like, oh, we're doing this for the good of everyone, not necessarily because we're being sent out on this mission. Very similar to like
right
the conversation that the Avengers were having on the Civil War movie. Like, we are a force for good, not so much a weapon of like the United Nations or whatever the case may be. So
yeah. I
uh,
mean, and Duke's motivation this whole time has been revenge, really, because his
yeah, that's
one of
true.
his he's trying to get down to the because he's introduced as a character who in Transformers who runs into one of the stars like the
Mhm.
air I forget what they call it, the Starscream bunch of planes of Decepticons, and his friend gets killed. And so this whole time he's just been on a revenge tour. He's like, who are these robots? Why is the government covering him up? I'm going to
Yeah,
figure this out.
and we see that in the first two panels. Like Joshua Williamson kind of, or the first panel reminds us. You see Starscream here in the
Yeah,
visor, and I was like, oh, it's so good. Like this is it's just a really fun way to like tell the story where if you've been reading, you get a lot out of it. If you haven't been reading, you kind of even you know what's going on, but you also wonder like, should I go back and read all those things, right?
yeah, exactly.
Um,
Yeah,
and yes, you should go back and read Transformers. It's fantastic. It's getting a 10th printing in December, so it's gonna have that nice little Skybound gold foil that Void Rivals got. I hope all the books actually get one of those because I would love to have a collection of that. Since
that'd
I
be
was able to
fun.
pick up that first Void Rivals one. Um,
You said something earlier that stuck with me. That you could hear the theme song as you were reading it.
yeah.
I could also hear it. I could also hear like the voice actor. Like anytime Duke was saying something, I would hear the voice actor in my head,
Oh,
especially
that's
with the
smart.
Baroness as well. The Baroness, that kind of that 80s Eastern European kind of high shrill voice, whoever that voice actor was. I
Yeah.
read Baroness's words in that tone. This is just cake for me, honestly. Love it.
It's really fun. I think this book though, I like that they kind of make you also feel like maybe not everyone is safe,
Yeah, 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 yeah,
right? Because and this is the big spoiler. Like at the end of it, when the Joes go to stop, well, they get attacked by Cobra, and Cobra's got like these energon weapons. They both go to the same place, right, for the mission, and
yeah,
Cobra's got these energon weapons, whereas the Joes, like Jeff mentioned, they're heavily underarmed, and what's his name? Rock and roll, right?
does rock and roll? Yeah, I think it's rock and roll.
Yeah, rock and roll gets pretty much, yeah, rock and roll. He gets obliterated by the energon weapon, which is heartbreaking. So also, if you didn't see the full cover with the Joes and Cobra, I mean
That's
that's
cool
great
stuff.
stuff. So yeah, I really like this. I think this is my actual first GI Joe book that I've ever read. Now that I
I was
think
going to
about it,
ask
like
you,
an
what is your
actual,
history of G with GI Joe?
not a lot. The first thing I probably watched, I'm sure I saw some reruns of the cartoon when I was a kid, but I never was like, oh yeah, it's time to go watch GI Joe, right? Um, I A lot of it comes from it's either the films or Robot Chicken making
Okay.
making parody of the Joes. Uh, but yeah, I think the
you,
film is definitely the most.
I should do a list because those original cartoons have some insane
Yeah.
episodes. A lot of that stuff was written by a lot of Marvel Comics writers,
Uh
and
huh.
there's
Uh-huh.
a few episodes where they go to alternate dimensions. There's one where I forget his name. The sea boat guy gets kind of catfished into
That's
imagining
what
this
it is.
whole made up life that he had. It's there are crazy episodes that I should sit down and make a list and be like, you guys have got to watch these. We need to talk
All
about
right,
this.
that might be a fun thing to like revisit later
Yeah,
on. I haven't even read. Tom Scioli did a series called Transformers with GI Joe, which is very heavily praised by a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to check
It's a
that out
good.
as well.
I have. I think most of those issues. They're pretty good
Okay.
too. Yeah.
I mean, Tom Scioli
This
is
is
great.
that.
So
That was like, so both of these have that in common, where it just feels like Hasbro was like, here's all the toys, dump them out on the floor, go nuts, play with them. And it's really just these creators just smashing them together and having a great time telling the
yeah.
story.
And one thing I had and this is just kind of very inside baseball, more about the publishing, but um, Ben Abernathy he used to be the editor over in the Batman group at DC. I didn't realize he had left DC to go do this at Skybound, like the Energon universe. Which is like I
Oh,
like that
nice.
they have a strong editor because that means that it feels like a cohesive world.
Yeah,
I
it
always
definitely
felt,
does.
yeah, I always felt very, I didn't know exactly what all it took to keep the Batman universe kind of rolling over at DC, but it has to be difficult. Like there's so much going on.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm very excited for the future of the Energon universe. I really need to catch up on Void Rivals. That's the only series that for some reason it didn't fully grab me when it started. Like I was like, oh, cool, Transformers, that was fun, but that's really all of it.
You
So,
do get a feeling because they're starting to incorporate some of the GI Joe characters now
oh
in the more
really?
recent issues. Yeah. Uh, so there are. I mean, it's the more fantastical side of the GI Joe, the Cobra Law part. Um,
Oh, okay, yeah.
so you're seeing some characters from there pop up in Void Rivals. I get the sense that once they get GI Joe up and off the ground and they kind of have the GI Joe Transformers kind of crossover thing,
Yeah.
that then will fold Void Rivals more into this universe at large. Because there are hints of, I mean, the Transformers have been popping up throughout the series, but this is the first time we've seen the GI Joe characters start to pop up there too.
Okay. Well, either way, yeah, I'm very excited to kind of do all that and catch up. I know we have the trade somewhere. Image sent that over to us. So yeah, really. There we go. Trying to get sand in the frame.
Yeah, I was like, where did my Santa go? I had to keep
Um,
adjusting my
cool.
desk here.
All right. Anything else? Any closing thoughts on GI Joe numero uno?
It's highly recommended. If you have
Yeah, go
not
pick it
read
up.
it, go pick
There's
it
no
up.
way your store sold out because there's so many variants.
Yeah, exactly.
So